time on the screencast because the cellular respiration intro is actually really short. Most of the stuff you should be pretty comfortable with already based on our studies of photosynthesis. Okay, so ask yourself as we're moving along here, why is it that we eat? So there might be some reflexive answers. Well, yeah, we eat when we're bored. We eat because things taste good and it's fun to eat. Sure, those are all true. But the real reason behind eating is because we have to. We have to eat because we have to generate energy. Okay, we have to generate energy for lots of different cellular processes. For the most part, the cellular processes that we have to generate energy for are to generate chemical reactions, so to make chemical reactions occur. Let me close that. Okay, so you might take down one of these giant cheeseburgers because you like giant cheeseburgers, they're tasty and you're hungry, but really it boils down to chemical reactions. Okay, so we covered this before. This is just a generic indication of a chemical reaction, right? So you have two reactants, A and B, and they go on to produce product AB. You may have reactant AB and go on to produce products A and B, okay? So you need energy to do some of these chemical reactions. The primary energy for cellular respiration that's created by cellular respiration is ATP, okay? So we need to eat to generate ATP to live. There's a relationship between photosynthesis and cell respiration. So you already know the photosynthesis part of this equation. You know that you need sunlight, which is the ultimate source of energy, right? So there's an energetic input into the system. You know that this process creates oxygen and creates glucose. That's a done deal already. What we're going to talk about is how we unlock the energy in that glucose. So, and glucose is going to be a reactant for cellular respiration. How you can unlock the energy in this glucose and how that goes on to create water and cellular respiration. Okay, cellular respiration is an aerobic process. So it requires oxygen to do this. Okay, so again, we'll get into details later on how this process uses oxygen to do this. Okay. ATP is ultimately the output of cellular respiration. So yeah, you make water, you make carbon dioxide, but you make a lot of ATP. This is the whole point of this process, is to create this ATP. Okay. Water and carbon dioxide go on to be the reactants for photosynthesis. So there's certainly a relationship here where there are certain reactants for photosynthesis. They go on to do their thing and produce these products, right? And then these products go on to become reactants for cellular respiration. You make ATP, which is very important, and then you also make these products over here, right? So this is pretty much like a cycle, like the Calvin cycle. You're constantly regenerating things that you need to keep this process going. It's the same carbon dioxide that goes off into the atmosphere and that photosynthetic organisms need to complete the Calvin cycle. That's what we put into the atmosphere. Okay. I just realized that there's a lot of misspellings on this. So basically, this whole process is going to show us how we unlock chemical reaction, the chemical energy stored in foods like sugar. You need oxygen to do that, and then for some reason this says you will learn why that. Okay, that doesn't make much sense. You will learn this process later. You will learn that process later. Okay? Okay, so there are different ways to, quote, eat. Okay, so there are organisms out there, like grass, that is immobile and cannot go down the street and buy food and make food for dinner. It's an autotroph, meaning it feeds itself. Okay, so it's a self-feeder. Uh, so that's for grasses and other photosynthetic organisms. It doesn't have to be grass. It can be plants. It can be, bacteria even. But these are autotrophs. They make their own food. They're also termed producers because of that, because they make their own food, and they make their own food by photosynthesis. Okay, so you know that process very well. We, on the other hand, we being part of the heterotroph community, are organisms that do not make their own food. I should check that. I should say we do not synthesize or create our own food energetically, right? You can go home and make a pot of spaghetti, I guess, but you can't create it with sunlight like autotrophs can. So this cute, adorable little bunny right here is a heterotroph because he eats grass. Uh, he cannot make his own food. He has to consume another organism, grass, to feed himself. Uh, Unfortunately, this dog is also a heterotroph, but he doesn't prefer grass. In fact, he prefers to eat bunnies. So your bunny right here is is now consumed, right? It's consumed by this heterotroph, right? So heterotrophs, like cute little bunnies and like vicious dogs, are consumers. Uh, they need to consume other organisms. Okay. So that's a really quick basic introduction. This is 7.1. We're done already. Uh, that's it. So you really need to understand uh, autotrophs versus heterotrophs and how they differ in heterotrophs and how they feed themselves. You need to go back and understand an introduction to cellular respiration. In other words, you need to understand the relationship between the two processes, what each makes and what each uses. So there's definitely a relationship between these two things. Ultimately, what we're studying here is the process that's used to make ATP, so you have to understand that process as well. And yeah, that should just about do it. Okay, take care. See you next time.